Touchdown BC is sponsored by
the Robertson Braun Group, Remax Kelowna. Thinking real estate in Kelowna? Think Blake Robertson, Marlene Braun. For more information, call 250-212-2888 or 250-878-5242.
Touchdown BC is also sponsored by Subway and the Subway Bowl. The Subway Bowl hosts and supports the BC High School Football Championships and amateur football around the province.
Welcome to Touchdown BC. I'm your host, Adam Kordick. Joining me is my co-host, Ty Clark. And Ty, it's November, so you know what that means.
Dirty mustache season.
Pretty close, but we're talking playoff football. UBC had a playoff game this past weekend. Also, it was the last weekend of high school football conference play, so the playoffs are about to start there. And also, this week, we're going to be previewing the Canadian Bowl. The BCFC champs, the West Shore Rebels, taking on the PFC champs, the Saskatoon Hilltops. Let's not wait any longer. Time to get in the action. Time now for the Subway BC High School Football Report. This past weekend marked the end of the regular season, and what a weekend it was. Teams were looking to get a W to get a better seed heading into the playoffs, and in some cases, teams needed a win to get the first weekend off in the postseason. One of those teams was the Notre Dame Jugglers. Let's check it out.
Vancouver College taking on Notre Dame in the 60th Archbishop's Cup, one of the longest, most bitter rivalries in BC high school sports. 2 minutes left in the first quarter, and Steven Moretto taking the direct snap, and he's got some blocks downfield. Moretto scampers out wide and dives in for what appears to be a TD. The referee rules that Moretto was actually slightly short, so he does it again, this time putting Notre Dame up a score at the end of the first Q. But Vancouver College will be right back, an eerily reminiscent of new West Wing T offense. Everyone bites on the motion fake handoff, while Michael Lee takes off up the middle. He makes a couple nice moves midfield, and he's good for a big gain. Irish keep picking away, and there would be no fake this time to Alfred Dela Cruz as he Dela Cruzes down the left sidelines, and this one is all tied up. Fast forward to the third Q now. Notre Dame with the ball, and it's Moretto. Dropping back to pass, but he decides to burn the college D with those wheels once again, gain of 15. Jugglers press, and it's Moretto on the QB sneak once again, putting Notre Dame back in front. After BC was forced to punt, Notre Dame goes right back to where they left off, putting the ball in Steven Moretto's hands and letting him do the rest. Moretto uses those wheels and speed kills. 63 yards all the way to the house. Notre Dame furthers their lead, and that would be it. Notre Dame wins their first Archbishop's Cup in the last 13 meetings, and also the number one seed in the West to earn a first-round bye. BC gets the 5th seed. South Delta locked up the 2nd seed in the West with a big win over the New West Hyaks. Grade 11 QB Michael Calvert led the charge, rushing for 3 touchdowns and passing for 3 more. 1 to Billy Matwachina, 1 to Doug Jamieson, and 1 to Gulas. With the loss, New West gets the 3rd seed in the West. Now here's a look at the other game from the West. Carson Graham gets its first win of the season, beating Mount Douglas 34-28. Unfortunately, not enough to make the playoffs. The Ram finish in 4th place in the West. Here's a look at the scores from the Eastern Conference. STM beats Mission 48-0. STM finishes in 4th in the East. Terry Fox finishes the regular season undefeated with a win over Centennial 47-7. Terry Fox finishes in 1st and will have the weekend off. Centennial finishes in 3rd. Lord Tweedsmuir gets the W over WJ Mowat, which earns them the 2nd spot in the East. Mowat finishes in 5th, and Mount Bougerie wins the Battle of Kelowna. They finish the season in the 6th spot. Now to the Pacific Conference. West Van beats Earl Marriott 33-22. Both those teams won't be moving on to the postseason, but Abbotsford and Handsworth will. Abbotsford finishes in 1st and Handsworth in 2nd, and they will play in the postseason. Now to round 1 playoff matchups. WJ Mowat will play Mount Douglas, with the winner moving on to play Terry Fox in the quarters. And Vancouver College will play STM, with the winner of this one moving on to play Notre Dame in the next round. Belmont will take on Centennial, and Handsworth will play South Delta. The winner of these games will play each other in the quarterfinals. And Mount Bougerie will travel to New West to take on the Hyaks, and Abbotsford will play Lord Tweedsmuir, with the winning teams moving on to play each other in the quarters. Now to the final TDBC Top 5 of the year, because now it's the playoffs. These rankings will be thrown out the door. Terry Fox Ravens at number 1, Notre Dame Jugglers at number 2, South Delta at number 3, and STM and New West at 4-5 respectively. Now let's take a look at the AA scores from last weekend, starting in the East. Holy Cross beats Langley 44-7 and earns the 2nd seed. GW Grand shuts out Argyle 15-0 and finishes in first place, earning a first-round bye. Argyle finishes in 3rd. Robert Bateman beats Salmon Arm to clinch the last playoff spot in the East. Here's a look at the scores from the West. Seaquam beats Frankhurt 42-0. They finish in 2nd in the West. And Hugh Boyd beats Barsby to lock up 1st in the West and earn the right to have this weekend off. Now to the Okanagan Conference. Vernon beats up on Valley View 48-6. With the win, Vernon finishes in 1st and gets a first-round bye. And South Kamloops beats West Side 42-6. Unfortunately, those two teams won't be moving on to the playoffs. To the north, Dutchess Park beats NVSS 28-20. D Park finishes in 1st and get this weekend off, and NVSS finishes in 2nd and will play this weekend in the playoffs. Now to round 1 playoff matchups. Windsor will play C. Fulton, with the winner set to play GW Graham in the next round. Robert Bateman will play Seaquam. The winner of that one will play Dutchess Park in the quarters. Bolinas will play Holy Cross this weekend, with the winner set to play Vernon in the next round. And Argyle will play NVSS. The winner will go on to play Hugh Boyd in the quarters.
Time now for the BC High School Report with Dino Jeremiah. Dino, first I want to congratulate you and the Notre Dame Jugglers for winning the Archbishop's Cup over Vancouver College 21-7. The first time since 2003, 12 years. What was it like to be part of that win?
Well, I think you don't think about how long it's been or what last year was, but I think for this team it was a good, solid win. It meant a lot to the school, a lot to the players, and I think it just allows some more momentum as we go forward into the playoffs. But all in all, just a great experience for the players, worked hard at it, and I think the school is going to be pretty proud about that win.
And with the win, you get a first-round bye. And could you remember the last time that Notre Dame, even before the Archbishop's Cup 12 years ago, that Notre Dame finishes first in that tough Western Conference? You got Mount Doug, New West, and this year, Notre Dame on top.
Well, I'll make it simple. No, I don't remember. So, but anytime you can have a bye going into the playoffs, I think it's a positive thing. So, gives it a little bit more opportunity to heal up and get ready for obviously the first opponent.
And then staying in the West, Mount Douglas loses to Carson. Something that you called 2 weeks ago when we talked, when you were in Bella Bella, that you said, like the Belmont, the Carson Graham, one of those teams were going to beat one of those top 5 teams in the West, and that was what happened. Carson Graham beating Mount Doug 34-28, and you were actually at that game.
Yeah, I was at the first half of the game, and Carson Graham and Belmont are in that tough conference, but they are good football teams. And I just knew that in the game of football, there's opportunities, and I knew those two teams were going to have an opportunity at some point to put together a solid game and beat one of the other teams in our conference. And especially, obviously, Mount Doug without Kremler is a different team. They're not that same threat on offense. They're not able to use their other weapons as well without Kremler. So it was opportunistic for Carson Graham, but full value for their victory.
And now let's look at going to this weekend. The playoffs started, and somehow there's a Catholic side of the BC High School playoffs. Obviously, Notre Dame with the bye, and they're going to wait to play the winner of STM Vancouver College. Those two teams played earlier in the season. Obviously, it was last exhibition game. Yeah. VC won, I think, by just one score. Yeah. But now VC's lost a couple games, yeah, and STM might be playing their best football, winning 4 conference games in a row to finish off the season.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough game, and I don't necessarily think the first game has any indication on this one. Tyler Eckert, who we've talked about before, and their game was before ours. I mean, he's going full speed now. Certainly has that injury behind him. You know, with him and St. Thomas More being healthy, that's going to be a hell of a game.
Let's quickly move to AA. Hugh Boyd wins their conference with a win over Barsby, a hard-fought game. Obviously, Hugh Boyd had that loss against Belenis, where Belenis seemed to score on every single possession about 2 weeks ago. But Hugh Boyd getting the first-round bye. What can you say about Hugh Boyd, not just in this game, but maybe heading into the playoffs now?
Well, I think they're going to be very difficult to stop. I think they have a great offense. Tyler Moxon is certainly a guy we've talked about before, and he gives their team confidence. He's a great athlete, can do several different things. So I expect them to continue on. But at the same time, I expect the other teams to start showing up, like the Barsbys and the Belenis. They're going to be tough during the playoffs. And you know, Hugh Boyd's going to get tested again as we go through.
Yeah, and then I guess the marquee matchup of the AA first round has to be Belenis taking on Holy Cross. Both teams playing very well near the end of the season. Holy Cross kind of reminds me of STM, where they kind of had a slow start, but have really picked up to kind of the potential that they want to play or people expected of them. What can you say about that matchup, Belenis versus Holy Cross?
Well, Belenis is certainly a solid team. I think they've got several weapons. They can certainly score points, as we've talked about. So it's going to come down to whether or not they can stop the weapons of Holy Cross. Marcus Brown with Holy Cross is just an elite level receiver, has that potential to score anytime from anywhere. Great size, I mentioned it before, difficult in a matchup. You know, who do you put on him? He's tall, he's strong, he's fast. So they're going to have to find a way to neutralize Marcus Brown. And then they have Cole Barron, who's just a tough old school football player as a middle linebacker and fullback, H-back type. So it's going to be Belenis' team and how well they can play against those Holy Cross weapons.
After finding out the Thunderbirds made Canada West semis based on a tiebreaker they had over Manitoba, UBC made its way to Mosaic Stadium to take on the red-hot Regina Rams. Would it be it for the Birds? Let's check it out.
UBC taking on Regina in the Canada West semis, opening quarter, and the Rams get onto the board first with one of the luckiest field goals I'm sure you've ever seen. UBC would get 2 of their own field goals before the punt in the second quarter, which is blocked by UBC. Colton Zaishli is right there to pick up the scraps as he scampers in 27 yards for the TD. UBC ahead 13-3. And just a little over 4 minutes after that, Michael O'Connor picks out Marshall Cook on the fade, and just like that, UBC starts off with a miraculous 20-3 lead with 3 minutes left in the second quarter. But the Rams would march downfield before Atlee Simon rushes in for the Rams and push the lead 20-10. To the third Q we go, and after a UBC safety to make it 22-10, O'Connor finds a streaking Will Watson for a gain of 32 deep into Regina territory. Just as UBC starts pressing more or less ready to put this game to rest, O'Connor doesn't see Cord DeLint, who picks him off at the 3. After a wild goose chase, the T-Birds are able to push him out of bounds at midfield to prevent the pick 6. Later in the third, Regina's Atlee Simon rushes 5 yards before losing his grip on the ball, UBC with a big recovery. That fumble would lead to this Ben Cummings 1-yard smash as he powers it home to put UBC ahead 29-13. The Thunderbirds would later hit a field goal and had no intention of taking their foot off the gas. O'Connor takes a big hit but gets the throw off as it was perfectly placed in the corner where only David Mann could grab it. UBC up 39-13. Later in the fourth, Regina down 26 until Atlee Simon rushes this one in 2 yards to minimize the damage to 19 points. Simon would run in another TD, but it wouldn't be enough as UBC wins 40-34 and secures a place in the Can West Finals. Michael O'Connor looked like his usual self in the victory as he found himself only 3 yards shy of eclipsing 400 yards in the air to the tune of 2 TDs and an interception. Atlee Simon racked up 78 yards on the ground for the Rams and added 3 touchdowns to his stat line, while Will Watson and Riley Wilson were the only receivers to go over 100 yards.
UBC's next game will be against the Calgary Dinos in the 80th annual Hardy Cup Canada West Championships. Kickoff in that game begins in Calgary on Saturday. Welcome to the UBC Report. Happy to say this isn't our second last episode, Jim. Let's get right into it. I didn't see this one coming. UBC more or less pitted Regina. They scored 17 points in 6 minutes in the second half. What happened from there?
Well, one of the key moments in this game was a punt block early on in the contest, and I think that put the Regina Rams on their heels. Whenever you can score 7 points through special teams, it's really like scoring off a turnover. The second thing that happened to the Regina Rams from their side is that Mitchell Picton was injured on the second drive of the afternoon, and he's been the number one target from his cousin at quarterback, Noah Picton, who's the odds-on favorite to become the Heck Creighton Award winner this coming year. So when you take that number one target away and you're facing a team like the UBC Thunderbirds, who have a number of players, they got a number of first-year players, but a lot of those second-year players and third-year players know what it's like to kind of wake up in November and go on one of these runs. They took a lot of experience into that game, even though they took a losing streak into the game. And like we said in this space before, 3-5 doesn't matter. They were in the playoffs. They're now 4-5. They go back to Calgary. They've done this before. Who knows what's going to happen in the Hardy Cup?
Getting a big win on the road. Michael O'Connor seems to show up in these big games. What kind of confidence does this give the UBC Thunderbirds moving forward?
Well, I think it gives them some confidence on defense because they shut down the number one offense in the country. That kind of helps in terms of getting some key personnel back in some positions too, getting healthy at the right time. That also helps. Make no mistake, UBC's a pretty thin team in some places on the roster. They're really young in some other places as well. But Blake Nill took a team in Calgary that was loaded with first-year players and second-year players and probably gave Laval the best push in their Vanier Cup runs outside of the 2011 loss that Laval had to McMaster. That 2013 game was a fantastic football game, and he did it with a lot of youth. So Nill is a guy that knows how to work with youth. And another thing, too, is I would not want to be Wayne Harris playing against Blake Nill after losing to him twice. Pretty hard to defeat a Blake Nill team, no matter whether they're a St. Mary's team or a Calgary team 3 times in a season. The Regina Rams just discovered that.
What is going to happen between Mount Allison and St. FX in the AOS?
Well, I'll hold the prediction here for a bit. I think St. FX is going to annihilate Mount Allison. I think they're going to win by at least 25 points. And I think that St. FX is probably the most complete team that we've seen coming out of the AUS since Acadia had Kyle Graves playing for them back in 2011, 2012. They've got a good balance between running and passing, and the defense is competent as well. Whether or not that's good enough to even register anything when they come out west against the eventual champion, that time will tell about that. UBC Calgary. Well, this is TDBC, not TD Alberta, right? In this case, I guess right now, at this point in time, I have to stick with the home side on this one because they've gone into Calgary, they've done it before, and it's pretty hard to beat a Blake Nill team 3 times, and it looks like Michael O'Connor's got his game on. It comes down to some special teams and the defense making a big play here or there. They're capable of winning this game. Calgary's got the depth. Calgary's a more physical football team. It'll be interesting to see how this game plays out. Maybe if you were to ask me later in the week, I might have a different answer for you. But for now, I'm going to be a homer and stick with the UBC Thunderbirds.
The 109th Canadian Bowl is finally here. The BCFC champs, the West Shore Rebels, will take on the PFC champs and 2-time defending Canadian Bowl champs, the Saskatoon Hilltops at West Hills Stadium on Saturday. These two teams have met in the Canadian Bowl before in 2003, where it was the Hilltops defeating the Rebels 59-0. This game could be a completely different story, with the Rebels having one of the best offenses this season that fans have seen in the BCFC in quite some time. I talked with both coaches ahead of the big game to talk about their upcoming matchup. Hey, Coach Boyce, is it fair to say that the Hilltops have never seen a rushing attack like the one that you have this season?
Well, I don't think so. I think schematically we do things differently than what I've been able to determine anybody in the PCFC does. We have some very dynamic backs in, obviously everybody knows about Jamel, great competitor, great athlete and becoming a really great team leader. He's the heart of our team and that big offensive line. We have Trey Campbell in the mix. We have two quarterbacks that are very athletic as well. Our quarterbacks are always part of our run game. I don't know if they see that, but I'm looking at their defense. Their front four are four outstanding football players. You can just tell they've got engines. They go all the time. They play with good pad level. They defeat blocks. Our O-line's very, very good, and it's going to be a great matchup. Our front five versus their front four.
Coach, you've compared the Hilltops program to Alabama with its rich history of winning. What would a Rebels win in this game mean to your program?
Well, I just think, we're a program on the rise. I think, there's as a community, they've rallied behind this team. The idea of what we're building, getting Coach Beatty on board was big. Again, you've heard me say many times, I have tremendous respect for Shane as a passionate, committed football coach. He's a great defensive mind. He's a tremendous strength and conditioning guy. He's got guys in the NFL, CFL. So any young athletes wanting to be developed athletically, he's a great guy to work under. The rest of our staff, we have a great board getting Doug Kobayashi as president and all of our volunteers. And, the athletes we've recruited, we've always said, Adam, we want to be a nationally relevant program. We believe, we're there. We're playing in the national championship. Now we want to go out and finish the right way. We have nothing to lose. We got great kids, great players, a community that's fired up. Look at this. I got a special sweats from the Rebels cheerleaders, Hey, everybody's enjoying this moment, Adam, and we're going to go out there and go for broke and just get after it. Play some great football.
We also talked with the head coach of the Saskatoon Hilltops, Tom Sargent, and got his thoughts on the Canadian Bowl matchup against the Rebels. Coach, from what you have seen on film, what can you say about your opponent in this game, the West Shore Rebels?
Well, what I will say is I see a lot of athleticism. It starts with their running back, 22 Lyles, 95 Hicks stands out. McKinnon's a great runner, and good quarterback. They got some skill with Pinto and other receivers to get down the field. They block well. They get guys around the ball defensively. They're just, as I said, you can tell they got a lot of confidence. They played hard, and hey, they won out in their league, so they should have all of those things. So we see that they're well coached, that they have a scheme and a plan, and and they're out there to try and execute just like we are. So the team that plays the smartest, plays the toughest, is probably going to be the team that wins.
Being a powerhouse program and usually the favorite, does your team ever feel any pressure going into these national championship games, or is it just business as usual?
Yeah, you know what? If there's pressure, I certainly don't see it. I keep reminding, it's game 12, and we set a goal at the beginning of the year to be here, and we are, and so it's game 12, and so I expect to come out and play our best game of the year. It's a building block scenario, and the execution, the game plans, well, not too much changes from week to week. It's just how you do it, and sometimes we've done it better than others, and sometimes we've left really proud as coach, sometimes very disappointed, and so, as I said, we measure performance on game day. We believe that we're going to come out. Forget that we've been there before. Sometimes it's better not to know what to expect. But I'm looking for these kids to come out, play their best game of the year, have our fifth years lead us, and where that takes us, we'll go down any path with them.
The Canadian Bowl between the Saskatoon Hilltops and the West Shore Rebels is on Saturday. Kickoff at 1 p.m. at West Hills Stadium. The national championship will be on the line. This game can also be watched online at the BCFC's website. For more coverage of the BCFC, follow each team's Twitter account and also the BCFC's Twitter account at BCFC_media.
Things are really starting to heat up in community football, and we've got you covered. Now let's get into the action.
Over to Bantam with the Valley Thunder taking on the North Langley Bears, and it's the Bears that get on the board first with a nice run to the corner by Ethan Bernardin. Later in the first, Bears back at it. This time it's Jesse Nielsen finding Nicholas Butler in the short route for the quick TD. Fast forward to the beginning of the third quarter, and the Bears pull some trickery, catching the Thunder by surprise on the onside kick for the easy recovery. That would lead to this Isaiah Key TD pass to David Weggert, who makes it look like child's play. Bears are cruising now. Thunder desperately looking to get something, anything going. Poor Tatum Ginger is left all alone in the Bears' den. North Langley looking good on both sides of the ball. Later in the quarter, Bears pressing once again. It's Ethan Bernardin for the shotgun sweep, bursting outside and in for his second of the day. Thunder get the ball back though, and well, yeah, Bears get it right back. And just to cap off an eventful night, Curtis Flynn gets in on the scoring parade as the Bears win 43-0. Now over to the scores in Bantam. Things are really starting to heat up in the Bantam standings, especially between the undefeated Bears and Tigers atop the board. With 2 games left in the regular season, who knows how things will shape up going into the playoffs. Over to some junior Bantam playoff action. Chilliwack with the ball first, and they give it to one of their biggest weapons, Logan Buckwitz, who bears an uncanny resemblance to Rob Gronkowski, and he scores touchdowns too. After the score, Mission waits to receive the kickoff, but the squib kick takes a couple interesting bounces and falls right into the hands of Saxon Kernahan. So Kernahan bounces to the right sidelines and makes a nasty stutter step midfield and presses that turbo button, successfully able to outrun any of the other Giants and in for the score. But Chilliwack gets it right back, and Grayson Frick hands it off to the speedy Mitchell Davies, and Davies is no stranger to touchdowns either. Giants regain control. Later in the quarter, the Giants give it back to Buckwitz, and he does what he does best, create holes and throw defenders in your way to the ground and run by the rest. He makes it look easy. Following cue, and the Giants make a couple adjustments, Frick is back in and he tosses an ICBM to Michael Hopwood, who very well could be the fastest guy on the field. Don't believe me? Look at this guy, prove you wrong. Giants with the ball once again, and this time it's time to turn Caleb Spanner. Spanner makes a couple beautiful cuts out of the backfield, and this could be the nicest run of the day. He eludes all would-be tacklers and takes off to the promised land as well. Giants air it out once more to cap off a masterful performance in their win over Mission, 49-6. Looking at the scores in junior Bantam, Langley tops South Delta 36-24. North Delta creamed North Surrey Falcons 44-zip, and the North Surrey Eagles tied Coquitlam at 6s. Over to the scores in midget after the last games of the regular season. North Surrey beat North Langley 22-15. Coquitlam topped Vancouver 16-6, and Langley beat up on Victoria 49-21. And with that, the midget standings are finalized. Now all eyes are feasted upon the Stampeders atop the throne at 10-0. Teams get a bye this weekend with playoffs beginning next weekend.
Well, it does it for another week of Touchdown BC. Adam, I cannot believe UBC is still in this thing.
UBC has shown that they're a playoff team the last 2 years. Last season, obviously winning the Vanier Cup when no one thought they would. This season, losing record, winning a tiebreak to even get in the playoffs. They beat the #1 team. Now they're going to visit Calgary, a team that they took to overtime and had the lead in the game 2 weeks ago. So we'll catch you up on all the scores from the CIS playoffs, as well as the first week of the BC High School playoffs. And can't forget, last but not least, the Canadian Bowl. The West Shore Rebels could be crowned national champions representing the BCFC in the Canadian Bowl. That game's this Saturday, so we're going to have a lot of stuff to cover next week. So thanks for watching. Go out, enjoy the games, and take care.
Touchdown BC is sponsored by